Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, Squirrel Nation. I hope you all have an outstanding holiday season with your friends and family. Today's video is going to be all about my new meta predictions, and this is based on the Winter Wonderland patch that recently dropped. The format is going to be simple. I'm going to go through the relevant changes first, and then I will end the video with my predictions. Before we dive in, those of you new to the channel, please smash that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of my amazing future content. And with that said, let's dive in. Okay, so here we are with the minion changes. There's just 4 main points. 1, XP decreases by 7.2% per wave from 125 to 116. The gold per wave is reduced by 6.25%. And the gold growth, which is the really important thing, is actually increased by 31.25%. And then the spawn rate is increased by 10% from 33 to 30 seconds. And in this chart, this will actually kind of show you something that I think is more helpful than just looking at those numbers. So basically what I did is I charted out on the x-axis at the bottom here. That's the numbers are each wave. So this is the first wave, second wave, third wave, fourth wave. And on the y-axis, you have the total amount of gold accumulated by a certain wave. So for instance, if we look at the 15th wave, then you can see that with the new gold, the player will have accumulated about 2,200, 2,300 gold, whereas they used to have about 2,000 gold. Okay, so the important notes on this chart that you can see is obviously with the new structure of gold for minion waves that we will be accumulating a lot more gold a lot quicker in the game. So another big major note out of this graph is that it does not count last hitting. So remember that last hits increase the gold by about 30%. So for instance, if you look up here, it's at 6,000 gold. You could actually add an additional 1,800 gold for the 30% if you were last hitting every single time. So anyways, I made this chart just to give people a more visual way to look at the difference between the old gold available by waves and the new gold available by waves. In the next chart is the monster changes. So the big thing on the jungle change is 150% increase on how quickly the jungle monster gold increases. So it went from 1% to 2.5%. The dragon growth rate, 30% increase from 5 to 6.5%. And then the buff drake. So the first 2 points, I think all that's pointing to is that just like the laners are going to be getting more gold as the game goes on, the same thing is going to happen for the junglers, but at the same time, the junglers, a lot of the gold is going to be front-loaded because this the gold growth rate for the jungle is only in the early game. So basically the junglers I think these changes were made to keep it so that the junglers keep about the same amount of gold as the laners do from clearing minion waves. And then finally, the Drake buff is going to be a major thing. The damage was increased by 10% versus minions and towers. The speed was decreased, which is actually a good thing because now the speed is 300. The movement speed, which is the same as minion waves, so that when you drop a Drake with a minion wave, it will actually stay with a minion wave. So before an issue became that, say you dropped the Drake on top of the minion wave, by the time it actually got to the towers, the Drake would get there first, right? Or you just couldn't control, or it was a lot harder to control where the Drake hit the tower in relation to the minion wave. And same thing with the AI, it got improved to also help us use the Drake more efficiently. The next thing is the tower changes. These are also going to be major changes because the tower value of gold you get is increased significantly. For each tower, they just increase the amount of gold by 20, but that's per player. But the big thing is, if you notice, the Tier 1 towers only started at 40 gold, so that's a 50% increase in how much Tier 1 towers are worth. And then 33% for Tier 2 and 25% increase for Tier 3. So towers are going to be worth a lot more, especially in the early game. And then the second thing to note for the towers is that the Tier 3 towers, so the high ground towers, their damage mitigation when no minions are around went from 80% to 70%. So that's actually a nerf to high ground towers, meaning they'll be easier to kill. But something that was also added is a damage cap you can only hit a tower for a maximum of 1,000 per auto attack. So the reason that's going to matter is because there were heroes that were just doing massive bursts like Rourke's or Violet to towers. So in this case, the better tower destroyers are actually probably going to shift towards more attack speed type heroes. Like Fennec is still going to definitely destroy towers more so than a Rourke, who used to just really burst them down quickly. Anyways, that is the tower changes. And finally, I wanted to discuss roaming because I think the impact of roaming is going to be what really affects this patch and how it's going to change the meta. So when I think of roaming, I'm thinking of a roaming timer in my head. And what a roaming timer is it's how long I have to roam and secure value on the map somewhere else. So to me, it has two aspects. It has my clear speed, how quickly I can kill a minion wave that is currently there. And then it has the travel time times 2. And I call it travel times times 2 because you need to roam away from where you started to your new objective, and then you need to roam back to your lane, right? Before you lose those minion waves. So as an example, in the early game, I would say it take average for most heroes. There's obviously heroes with fast wave clear and heroes with slower wave clear, but I think in general, like level 1, level 2, heroes can clear the wave, you know, around 20 seconds, but let's say I put 18 seconds, probably average. Some clear it faster, some clear it slower. But anyway, so you have 18-second clear speed, right? And then travel time, and I use Jin'ar with the certain Arcana that I use for move speed. So his movement speed is 374. And anyways, it takes Jin'ar on that 374 movement speed, 15 seconds to run from the mid tower to the bot lane tower, and 13 seconds from the mid lane tower to the top tower. So if you're going to gank, you're obviously not running to the tower, you're actually running more like to the mid lane, so that's actually going to add time. But anyways, the point becomes this. If you think of Jin'ar, he clears the wave, it takes him 18 seconds. Then he rotates bottom to go for a gank. That's 15 seconds. Well, guess what? That's already 33 seconds, and that means that a new wave has already arrived at his lane. Then it takes him 15 more seconds to run back. And in that time, his enemy actually could have cleared, if they stayed in lane, they could have cleared that and pushed it to his tower. So anyways, the new changes to minion waves are the major impact that I see is it's going to dramatically change how roaming works in the game. So one last thing is from the core to the mid tower takes 15 seconds. So the reason that matters is if you're recalling the window to recall without missing Golder experience from the minion waves is going to be a lot shorter. So players who are used to recalling all the time are going to be probably more punished. They're going to miss kills here and there. So anyways, those are the major changes that I see, and these are my meta predictions, and now we'll kind of go over each of the 4, and I'll justify why I think this will play out this way. So I think games will end faster. The reason is itemization. So basically, laners are going to get gold faster. The objectives are worth more gold early. So what's going to happen is that means people are going to buy their essential items quicker in the game. And when people get their items quicker, they're going to be able to kill towers quicker and better, right? And same thing for the Drake buff. The Drake buff is going to help people kill high ground towers better. So I think that will also speed up games. And then finally, the towers change themselves. The fact that high ground towers have less damage mitigation. So occasionally you can kill them without minions. I still don't think it's going to be common because it's still 70%. But those type of little things will definitely help people kill high ground towers. I don't see the 1,000 damage cap being a huge hindrance to people killing high ground towers. So overall, I just think between quicker itemization and the buffs to Drake, I think that games are going to end faster because people are going to focus more on objectives that are worth a lot more, right? The dragon is going to be worth a lot more a lot sooner in the game. The towers are going to be worth a significant amount more in the game, which is going to mean that objectives become much more important than getting kills. So when teams are focusing on getting objectives, they're obviously also going to snowball games and end games quicker. So anyways, the next prediction is that heroes with fast wave clear will boom, and in that goes C also, which is heroes with fast movement speed will boom. The reason for that is if we think about the roaming, right? roaming is going to be very important because objectives are worth so much more. And they also made a change to Dragon and Darkslayer where they eliminate 50% of a player's regen. So it's going to be a lot harder for junglers to solo Dragon and Darkslayer, which means teams are going to need to come and help their junglers secure those objectives, and that means they have to roam, right? So if they have to roam, but now they have less time to roam, it is going to dramatically impact what type of heroes are viable in certain lanes, okay? So if you have heroes with very poor wave clear, like for instance Roz, as a mid laner, has very poor wave clear, it's going to be very hard for him to get to objectives in team fights without losing farm in his lane, okay? So I'm not saying those heroes won't be successful, but it's going to be harder and they're going to have to be played differently as compared to heroes like Lindis. A Lindis has very fast clear speed of the jungle. She has very fast movement speed throughout because of her passive in bushes. So for her, this new meta will probably fit her very well because she can roam very quickly to objectives and lane to lane because of her passive through bushes, and she can clear things very quickly. Another great thing for Lindis in this patch is going to be that she can still solo dragons. So Lindis, the dragon, doesn't actually take less damage or anything like that. It's just it prevents you from regen. So for melee heroes, that's going to matter because melee heroes couldn't really dodge the dragon's damage, but Lindis can actually take dragon still with only taking maybe one hit if they do the dragon correctly and they kite it correctly. So I think Lindis will be a big boom hero in this next patch. And then my last prediction is there will just be more focus on objectives than kills. And I kind of mentioned this throughout the video, but once again, objectives are going to be worth so much more gold early game that it's going to be much more beneficial for a team to rotate heavily, like maybe 3 or 4 person rotation to grab a tower, than it is going to be for them to rotate to get a gank. Obviously, a gank is going to be an easy way to lead into a tower, but I just think if players and teams have the option between getting a tower or getting dragon and getting a few kills, they probably are actually going to lean towards the tower and dragons with these changes. But anyways, that does it for my predictions of the new meta for the Winter Wonderland patch. Okay, that does it for today's video. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe if you did. Also, it really helps me if you will share this video around so that other people can join the Squirrel Nation and just join our great community we have going on. But anyways, as always, I'll see you all tomorrow, and happy ranking.